Alright, hello, and today we're going to be going over lesson 3, and we're going to be representing proportional relationships, and we're going to be graphing those, okay? So, first off, we're going to start off with doing some mental math. So, if you'd like, you can go ahead and pause this and solve these on your own, and then you can unpause and watch me work through them and see what I get, okay? So, we aren't supposed to use our calculator or anything. We're just going to do this in our head. So right here, 15 times 2, we're just going to double 15. So that would be 30. Now when you see this, a decimal might throw you off a little bit, but basically this is just saying what is half of 15. So if you know that, you would then put 7 and a half. If you don't know that, you could think of what is half of 14. Well, half of 14 is 7, and half of 16 is another common one, is 8, and so 15 is right in the middle. So half of 15 would be right in between 7 and 8, so 7 and a half. All right, now right here, what is 1/4 of 15? Well, what we could do is take half of 7.5, okay? So half of that would be 3.75. Alright, so now what is 15 times 2 1/4? Well, we know what double 15 is, and we know what 1/4 of 15 is. So we could take 30 plus 3.75 and get 33.75. So we just did that by adding these two that we already solved for. Alright, so down here we have some proportional relationships, okay? So let's go ahead and read this. So it says Jada and Noah counted the number of steps they took to walk a set distance. To walk the same distance, Jada took 8 steps. So I always underline some information, and then while Noah took 10 steps. So they walked the same distance, and it only took Jada 8 steps, and it took Noah 10. Then they did it again, and it took Noah 15 steps, and Jada 12. Alright, so over here they have an equation already made for us. Awesome. So it says let x represent the number of steps Jada takes. So I'm going to put a J next to that x, so then we know what that x represents. And then y is going to represent Noah's steps. So I'm going to write an N right above there, just so then I have an idea of what they are representing. Alright, so down here it says create a table that represents this situation with at least 3 pairs of values. Alright, so let's create a table. So we're going to have our x and our y values, and they've already given us some information. So they said, remember, x represents Jada. So Jada took 8 steps, so I can put 8 here. And then when Jada took 8 steps, Noah took 10. So then I can put 10 on my y, because Noah is represented by y. Alright, now a second pair value would be down here. So Noah took 15 steps, so Noah is y. And when he took 15 steps, Jada only took 12. Alright, so now what we need to do is find a new set of numbers for that last pair of values, okay? So we can do that by using our constant of proportionality. So our k value is our constant of proportionality. So k is represented by your y over x. Well, up here, they already gave it to us. So k equals 5 over 4. So we can make sure that these numbers are correct by putting our y value over our x value. So 10 over 8, that does reduce down to 5 over 4. So just showing you what this 5 over 4 represents from our data. And then again over here, 15 over 12, if you divide both of those numbers by 3, we would have 5 over 4. So we need another set of numbers here that we could plug in our y over x to get 5 over 4. So you guys can pick whatever number you'd like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the number 4 for x, okay? So what we can do is use our formula y equals kx, like up here, and plug in one of our values to solve for the other. So I'm going to use 4 for my x and solve for y. So y equals k, which is 5 over 4, times my x value, which I picked to be 4. Alright, so now if I do this, y equals 5 over 4 times 4 over 1. I can cancel those 4's out, and my y then equals 5. Alright, so let's check our answer, and let's put our y over our x value and see if it reduces to our k value. So my y value is 5 over 4, and looky there, it matches up perfectly. So there we go. We just created a table to represent all of the information they just gave us. Okay, so now it says we're going to graph this relationship. Well, we have an empty graph, so we need to fill it up with some information first, so then we can put our points and graph the relationship. So first off, let's go back over here. And Jada is represented by x, and Noah is represented by y. So when we look at our graph here, our y value always goes up and down, and our x values always go side to side. So this is our x and y axis. Like we said on that other page, Jada is represented by x, so I'm going to label this Jada, because all this information down here is representing her. So that means all my y values represent Noah. Alright, so we have to make sure we label those x and y axes, okay? So that we know what that information is representing, because we're graphing relationships. So now what we need to do is plot some, well, we need to plot our points, but in order to do that, we need to mark up our graph. So we need to put some values on there. Alright, so we know from our table that Jada goes all the way to 12. So we can mark this to go 1, 2, 3, and all the way to 12. And then on our y-axis, it stops at 14, and the furthest amount of steps Noah took is 15. So what we can do in this scenario is just create an extra line. Okay, sorry. Just an extra line here and have all these extend. So I'm going to go ahead and mark up my graph, and then you will be able to look at mine, pause it, and copy it down, or do it on your own and then pause and look at mine. Alright, so here's my beautiful graph. Now we need to plot some points. So we can look over at our table and use the information over here. So my x value is 8 and my y is 10. So I'm going to plot my point at 8 on my x-axis and 10 on my y, and that point would be right there. I also had 4 and 5, and then my third one was 12 and 15. There we go. So now what we need to do is graph our line. I don't have a straight edge, so I'm using a Ziploc bag box. So when you're at home, literally just use anything straight. So when I tell you guys in class, just use something straight, even if you don't have a ruler, that's what I do. Alright, so there is our relationship. Alright, so down here it says, how can you see or calculate the constant of proportionality in each representation? Alright, so that means how can we do it by table, and then how can we do it by graph? Okay, so by table, we have our x and y, and we can just pick a point from our graph. So we had 8 and 10. Well, our k value is y over x, so I'm going to put 10 over 8. That reduces to 5 over 4, which is my k value, all right? Now for graph, I can pick 2 points and see that distance and see if 5 over 4 is the same as saying my vertical over horizontal. So I can pick 1 point and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 4 to the right, and it lands on my line. So that's how I can check it with the graph. Alright, now it says, what does this mean? Well, it means that for whenever Noah takes 5 steps for every 4 steps of Jada's. So that is what we have represented here, okay? Now explain how you can tell that the equation, description, graph, and all the tables represent the same situation. Well, they have the same k value. Right. Now we have another example like that. So right now we have a car wash fundraiser, and they gave us our table and everything here. So it says write an equation that represents this situation. Use C to represent the number of cars, so C, and M to represent the amount of money. So what this is actually representing is our x and y value. So we're going to use our normal equation that we've been using, which is y equals kx, but we're going to plug in the letters that they want to use to represent this equation. So our equation would then be m equals kc. So I literally just put the letters in for their new letters, okay? All right. Now what I need to do is figure out my k value. So in order to do that, k equals y over c. I have a y value, an x value, or sorry, I'm getting them mixed up, but still, y over x. So I can do 93.5 over 11. You plug that in your calculator, you get 8.5. So now we can plug that in for k. So our final answer is y equals 8.5 c. That is our equation. Alright, so now we need to graph this, okay? So in order to do that, we need to make sure our graph is scale for the numbers that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out, and then you guys can copy it down. Alright, so I went by 20s here so I could get all the way to 200, and I just did 1 for each of these, but I just counted by 2s to leave more space. So now I need to plot my points. So at 11, I'm at 93.5, so you're just going to do your best and plot this point around there. And then at 23, we're at 195.5. That's about right. And now we get to graph our line. So your graph at home should look very similar to this. Now it says, how can you see or calculate the constant of proportionality in each representation? So we can use a table, and we'd use our x and y, and we could do our 11 and then 93.5, and that would be 93.5 over 11 to get 8.5. Or what we could do is use our graph and use the points on there. So we could take y minus y over x minus x. And if we do that, we have 195.5 minus 93.5, 23 minus 11, and there's our k values. Alright. Now at the end it says, explain how you can tell the equation, description, and all that represent the same situation. Well, they have the same k value again. And that is how we know. Sorry, that does not look like English. Alright, so there we go. Once again, if you need to go back over any of this, please rewind and rewatch, okay? But have a good rest of your day.